Okay, hey everybody, this is Grace. And today, well, I'm feeling pretty good. Yesterday I even said something that I feel like celebrating because after 52 years, more than 52 years, I'm 62. And since I was a kid, I don't know when it started, I have had this rare health condition. It's very rare. And I remember putting out there 0.31%, but that's what that one I think was the one that was what doctors would see, patients the doctor would see in their not their career but their lifetime. They might run across 0.31% of the population, well, person. Well, you know what I'm saying. Oh my goodness. But of the population, like last week I did, as of that day, I did this. It said, out of the population, the people who are actually diagnosed, and I don't tell what it is anymore. I used to in the past, but this rare health condition, only 0.004 or 0.02 TO, 0.00, it will say 7.9 or 7.9 or 8, somewhere around 8, let's say 7 to 8. But that's percent of the population. That's very low. And about 80% is by it says reputable places, researchers, that 80% of the people are undiagnosed. 80%. That's a big percent. And personally, I read some of the things that says why, because it could be this, it could be that, it could be something else, and all that. And personally, I've had it for probably close to 62 years, and so, but I know the symptoms are big time symptom. There were some symptoms before that, but the big time symptom came up when I was 10 years old. 10. There were some little ones before that. And anyway, my truth, I'm a social behavioral scientist too. What I truly believe is doctor ignorance. I don't play around. Provider ignorance, provider stereotypes, provider stereotyping. They are prejudiced. They have one way of looking at something, and that's all that they want to see. They don't want to think anything else. And I can go on from there. The ones who don't diagnose somebody who's sitting right in front of them that have these symptoms. And some of it is pure ignorance. Seriously. Pure ignorance. I have actually been told that by one who is a specialist. That part. He didn't use the word ignorance, but it's the same meaning, mister. It is the same meaning. I just don't play with the words. It's ignorance. Okay. In my field, one of them, I have two. One of them, sociology. We use the term. It's ignorance. Okay. Anyway, well, I got off on that. I got going down that road, and let's get to this. As of yesterday, I was informed that I'm waiting for it in the mail, a medication that's supposed to help. Finally, after all these years, the medication is on its way. Can you imagine how I feel? Elation, but I don't at the same time. Because what happened? Just as I kind of suspected. There is a part, he said, basically to jump to, the doctor said, I can't guarantee that it's going to totally change everything for you because we can't do that surgery. But it's going to change some, but you might not notice it until we bump it up. And we don't want to bump it up right away very fast. So it's going to take a while, and then it takes a while to get in your system. You see what I'm saying? He went on from there, trust that. He went on from there. And I like this guy. This is a doctor I like. And I don't like to say that because anytime I say I like a doctor, it turns bad. In my past, seriously. You know, especially, oh my, you wouldn't believe some of the stories I could tell. Some unbelievable stories. I'm going to just say it. Some most abusive things I have seen from doctors. And Adam has been there with me because I started taking him with me. Adam, you know, he and I met and married so many years ago. In fact, today is a special day. But he's been there with me. In case you're wondering, today we married 44 years ago. Today. Exactly. But he's been there with me for recent years. Because he's just bowled, bowled over by it. It's like, my goodness. But he's starting to see some with his own doctors now that he's gotten older. You know, he's older than I. And he goes to a variety of doctors. He's like, whoa. You know, so he's starting to see it. But still, he has a time with it because for so many years he would say things to me like, you know, like he said recently. He even said it again recently because he's so used to saying it. He says, you just have this weird knack of having all these things. How come one person just, you know, like he's doubting it in a way, but yet not? Because he's been there now. He's seen it now. People with my rare health condition, I have a feeling I'm not the only one who's had to deal with, it's not poor bedside manner, it's abuse. Some form of abuse. And I'm not talking physical, at least I don't think so. But yeah, abuse. It could be verbal, psychological, you know, just any of those. Something just happened, so right in the middle of my sentence I saw something. But verbal, you know, psychological, emotional, and or etc. types of abuse. One stuck her finger in my face. I've said that story so many times. She stuck her finger in my face twice. And what she said, you would have to imagine that, remember that commercial, bitter beer face? I remember seeing that commercial maybe once or twice. And that ugly, ugly look on their face, and she had her finger, you know, pointing at me, real, you know, she was my age, and she's just really tiny woman. And she stuck her finger like that in my face and said, this is my first time to see her. She said, I'm going to tell you what to do, and you will mind me. Imagine it. I'm sitting there, and this little bitty old woman is saying this to me. And Adam's sitting next to me, and he just totally in shock, too. I can laugh at it now. Yeah, I even laugh at it then because it says more bad about her than it does me. I am a strong believer in that. I know that that's what it is. And then she turned her finger to him. I am so surprised that he did. I think he was really in shock. Both of us were. And then she said, and you will make sure that she does. Just like that. I mean, just doesn't the sound of that just make you say, who the? You know, this is Texas too. And then she did. She said some things. She did it again. And she even opened up the door at one point. And she went to the front and she came back and she said, you have the worst insurance ever. I have the best insurance. my insurance policy, people say, wow, man, you have such great insurance. These people that work at these places, like in a hospital, they say you have the great coverage. Yeah, I do. And she said that, and she named it, yelling it where all these patients were up the front. I mean, that place was packed because there's more than one doctor there. And I think she was the only one that didn't have a sign out in the front that was, they had won some kind of awards, you know. She didn't have one. Well, I wonder why. I mean, I don't like, you know, I'm not, vengeance is not mine. But she should not be practicing. Because there are some people, I am not a weak person. There are some people who would be, and that would crush them. To have somebody speak to them that way, I mean, it could have just crushed them. have been very detrimental to their health. I can't even say that it wasn't to mine or Adams to have somebody that, because we had the whole thing, like why they can't have affairs with their patients or their employees. It's along the same line. Why you can't be verbally, emotionally, psychologically, etc., and so on, abusive towards your patients. It's not poor bedside manner, and let's give them a little slap, or maybe a little tap on the knuckle instead of a slap on the wrist. A little tap on the knuckle. Oh, you shouldn't say stuff like that. I know it's poor bedside manner, but you really should. No. You're fired. You lost your license. Out the door. You don't treat people that way. You're the problem, not the solution. You see the difference? That's how it should be. You lost your license. Really? You're going to do harm to a patient because of your ego? Well, then you're fired. I mean, why is that a problem, huh? Because I went to school that long? Well, I went to school over 20 years. Well, when am I going to be treated like that? If I'm on some pedestal that even if I do wrong, I don't want to be. I'm not a person who has an ego like that. And I'm not saying all of them do. But those who do, I've met plenty. I had one tell his staff to tell me that I don't take care of myself, and that's the only problem. It was a rare health condition. It is a rare health condition. Yeah. And now, man, in my purse, I have it. I am going to put it in a frame. The diagnosis, I really am. Okay, I really won't, but and put it in. I do have the copy of it in my, what is it called? Like in the hospital, they're called discharge papers. They do this now. I've noticed more do it now when you go to your doctor visit. And they give you those papers when you leave. The visit summary. I think it's called visit summary now. Yeah, and one of them has the diagnosed finally, right there in writing, black and white. I've been diagnosed since, more and more I think about what happened to me when I was a child. My 7th grade teacher did have that diagnosed. Okay, she did have the diagnosis and they probably told her to tell people, so people would, my students, other students, so they would know, not to treat it as something else. It's a long story. I'm not going to tell it all. But anyway. To make people more aware of differences. Yeah, social studies. I mean, isn't that what it was called back then? Social studies. And that was in junior high, and we didn't have middle school back then. A long time ago. But anyway, it's kind of like bittersweet. The whole feeling is a little bittersweet. Of course, I brag to the I told the doctor, I think it was the doctor, his MA, I said, I feel like celebrating. Seriously. And I told the checkout clerk, I feel like celebrating. I finally, at least 52 years, I've been waiting on some kind of something to help me. Really. Can you imagine? And while we were in that visit, Adam was with me. And I said, well, the doctor was saying something about I have to wait a little bit longer for it to come in the mail. I said, well, that's okay. I said, but kind of, something was said that I said, well, after 52 years of waiting, you kind of get a little impatient. 52 years. Okay, 52 years. And it's been more than that. So... yeah, you might be a little impatient by then. Giving up. Some people would have given up. But I did not give up. And now my fear is this might cause me problems. There's always that risk, and he went over. The risks that he went over were not as bad as the ones for the other medication they tried to get me to take for it. And that one, I said, I'm not doing that. And I reminded him, told him, I said, look, I am not taking any new medication. It's just on, it just came out like a few years ago. Nope. It has to have been tried. I'm not a guinea pig. And I'm not going to be a guinea pig. Been there, done that. Seriously, not even being informed of it. But I was that on medication. The reason why I know I have this was because I was in the hospital for another one that they put me on and did not inform me that it was a new medication. And it backfired big time on me, and I wound up in the hospital with pancreatitis. And then when I had pancreatitis, they accidentally found out I have this rare one, okay? Even though 2 years before that, or a few years, 2 years before that, other doctors were telling me that. And he said, well, why didn't they? He has this bad thing about not understanding time. He has a good memory because he brought that up. But he said, why didn't they run a CT back then? So, I don't know. It was back in 1990s. You see, I said, I have no idea why they didn't do it. And I've had to tell him stuff before, like, he said, well, what was that medication you were on as a child? I said, do you realize that was over 50 years ago? I really like this guy, this doctor. But he has to, like I say, a little problem realizing how long ago he's asking questions about. And I'm not going to remember them. Who would? But he himself does have a really good memory. Adam even noticed it too. Okay, Adam and I always look at things pretty much, almost always different ways. So, but I've had to tell him more than once. I don't know. I say it nicely, but seriously, you do realize that's over 50 years ago. It's not like it was just yesterday. You see? So, I mean, can you remember a medication you were on? Adam and I were joking a while ago, earlier today. And Adam, I have a toenail that's bad, and the podiatrist has said that I should go have my toenails because of this whole problem with the leg and all this stuff. That's a part of this with the that rare health condition alongside of it. And I can't cut it, but Adam can clip that nail. Well, he hurt me this time. And I mean, seriously, cut the part of the toe, and he started bleeding. Yeah. And the short version is this is, after I take a shower, he'll put a Band-Aid on it. Put a Band-Aid on a toe is funny. But, anyway, I was saying, do you remember that stuff when we were young? I said, at least, this kind of, it's a little tight. I said, but at least it doesn't hurt like that stuff when we were young. Adam and I, he's a little older than I. We didn't know one another when we were young, that young. I said, what was it called? Mercurochrome something? I can't remember what it was called. I do remember that it would, once it was put on, it would look like red, orange, and yellow. Once it was actually on, and he said, yeah, they used to use it for everything. Any kind of cut, it didn't matter. They'd put it, our parents would, his parents, he has his individual parents, they grew up in a country across the globe, but it was still the same stuff. You know what I'm saying? I said, I wonder whatever happened to that stuff. I'm going to try to look it up right now, in fact. Okay, now I have to say that I'm amazed at myself because I came close. It was now I can't. Now I'm not going to be able to say it. I think I actually said it right. Mercurochrome. Okay, and it's restricted in certain places and stuff like that. But I guess they don't use it as much. You order online and you can misuse it really bad. Stains your, so many warnings against it and all that stuff. But like mercury, because it contains mercury. I think that's what it said. That's why it's restricted. I'm a part of. I don't know. You go read it yourself. I don't know. But anyway, It's amazing that I remember that. And but I think some things you don't forget, especially when your skin turns all those different colors, you know, around it, over it and around it. But anyway, I think I'm gonna go in. I think I've been out here about an hour. I had a video before this I made, but it is good. You know, there's a lot of things I've been reading on it, even more. And so far, what the doctor has said, don't expect miracles. Basically, right off the bat, it might take a few years, a couple, 1 to 2 years, and it might not ever totally, because they can't, because they can't do the surgery. It might not do as much as I would with the surgery. Of course, it won't do as much as it would with the surgery, but still, I was hoping for more of an upbeat kind of thing to it, But I did ask, I said, can it help with the muscle atrophy part to it? Hamstring muscles. And he said it could. He said he just can't guarantee how much. He said it should some, but there's no guarantee of how much, kind of thing overall. And it's going to take a while to get in my system. So, and I have to be tested every week. Yeah, I have to be tested every week at first for certain things, and then to see how it goes and so on and so forth. I could be tested every week for the rest of my life. On a certain certain thing. I'm gonna leave that one out, but yeah. Anyway, I'm still it's bittersweet. Plus, I'm still not certain. The bittersweet is, I mean, there's more to that, of course. All these years, and all that I went through in my life because of it, and the cause to it was childhood trauma, abuse. Okay, I was abused as a child. Just set it all up. I mean, just set it all up. State it all up front. Abused as a child. And it caused me a lifetime so far, all this 62 years of problems. There's no prettying it up. There you go. Yeah, there's none. It is what it is. What it is. It was what it was. What caused it. So yeah, I make a whole lot of videos about what the abusive way people behave for good reason. Wrapping it up. Talk to y'all in another video. Bye.